Thank you for joining us. And tonight, my friends, are the Supremes, who are currently appearing in Chicago at the Empire Room of the Palmer House. And Mary, Cindy, and Jean are here with us. And I want to thank them, first of all, for taking time out from their very, very busy schedule, not only with the Empire Room, but all the personal appearances and things they've got to make to talk to people all over the eastern United States and Canada. And let's get right off with the first question. And whoever wants to jump in, can any of you tell me what the Motown sound is?
You would start with that one, wouldn't you? Wow. Well, the Motown sound. Cindy, why don't you answer?
Well, I think you can best describe it, Mary, because you've been with Motown for longer.
Okay, well, I'll try. I'll take it. Actually, the Motown sound is a sound, I think, that is distinguishable by its rhythm. We've been very fortunate to have a very good basic rhythm sound that people can automatically tell if they hear that bass. They know, wow, that's Motown. But we've gone farther and said that it has a lot to do with writers. We have young writers who like to write youthful tunes, happy tunes, love tunes, and most of them have a complete story. Most of the tunes that any Motown artist will sing has a complete story to it. And well, I could go on and give you lots of parables of what it's like, but I still wouldn't be answering what the Motown sound is. So,
being an outsider for a while and listening to Motown recordings, I would say that it's a dancing feeling. It's a feeling of getting into the groove of the music, and it's a sound that young people can relate to, and they like it, and older people also, because they've begun to want to dance too and do other things besides two-step and four-step, and everybody wants to dance. So the Motown sound is a young sound that makes you want to get up and dance, I think. That's how I saw it when I was outside of Motown.
Is there any truth to the feeling I get, and somebody mentioned it on the West Coast a few years back, that there is almost an Indian tom-tom drum constantly in every Motown record?
Well, I don't know. That's what I was speaking of. There is a definite rhythm that you can distinguish that you don't hear in any other sounds, say like the Memphis sound, any of those sounds. It's a definite beat, and I don't know if it's the bass or the drums or what it is, but it's a definite beat. And I guess it goes to say the same thing Jean was saying, that you want to get up and dance too.
Mary, and Jean, you brought this up. You said there is a story in just about every song, a Motown record. Doesn't this go back to the old rhythm and blues or race records too, with the old story songs in a way?
Well, I'm not too familiar with them.
I'm talking about
so I don't know.
We're talking about the Chuck Willis's "What Am I Living For" and things of that nature.
Well, I guess I think they all derive from that. Yes.
Who were you influenced by, primarily?
Well, I don't think I was influenced by anyone, really. I like music in general, and I don't think there's one person that has influenced me. I wish there had been.
Cindy, how about you? Anybody in particular that influenced you, or?
No, I don't think there was anyone that really influenced me. Of course, I had people the artists that I loved to listen to, such as Johnny Mathis, and, well, I love Barbra Streisand now. And I used to listen to a lot of artists, but I don't think any of them really influenced me.
And Jean?
Well, primarily I was influenced by my brother, Ernie Terrell. And I've said this many times before because people ask, but he has really been an influential person in my life as far as my career is concerned, because he's pushed me constantly pushing me, and still is. When he sees me, he says, "You got to do this a little better," But anyway, from the time I was a teenager, he used to make me sing right in front of him and all that kind of stuff. He'd stand up and sing like, okay, tell me what to do. And he'd play and I'd sing, and he'd tell me different things to use and vocally and what sounded best. And he was just on the case all the time, and all the way up until I got with Supremes.
That's very interesting that a big brother would guide your career along so well.
I guided his.
Well, you know, I'm not going to argue with either of you with him. Supremes, as a group, what are you trying to do?
We're trying to do exactly what we're doing. That's entertain people. Now, of course, that the scale that's on is very large. We can do quite a few things. Say, well, like I said, our main thing is to entertain people, and that would say singing, first of all. I don't think we would ever want to lose that because that is our career. And I think people always ask us, what do we want to do? Well, what more should we want to do? I mean, really, we have all we can do to maintain our career. And in doing that, we do interviews, we do television shows, and of course, we might want to widen our scope. Well, that's outside. That's only, well, Cindy is already married. But we might want to widen our scope by doing maybe some movies like certain other entertainers are doing, and that might come in the future, or maybe television series, which we are seriously thinking about. But as of adding anything else outside of entertainment, I don't think we would want to do that as a group. You know, our main thing is to entertain.
How important is entertaining your audience?
That's the most important thing, because if you're not doing that, you're not doing it.
Have you ever got on stage and said, well, they're not digging us, tough?
Oh, no.
No.
In fact, that makes us work harder.
That's right. We've got to bring them up. You know, we can't let them sit on their hands. If they're that way, if we feel that our audiences are going to be that way, and they're just naturally that way by nature, they like to sit on their hands, we definitely work hard to get them up.
Right.
Because we like to see an audience that's enjoying us in front of us, because we work hard, and we want to please them, so we want to see that they are enjoying us.
Right. And if we leave the stage and we feel that they have not been pleased, we feel all right, because we know we have worked extra hard to please them. So if they didn't, well, next time we won't have to be bothered with them, because we're quite sure they're not going to come back to see us again.
Is there such a thing as a bad audience?
Oh, yes.
Yes, there have been bad.
Yes.
We're fortunate in that we don't get very many of them, because we have a lot of fans, and and they come to see us. And we very seldom get hecklers or people that are actually out there to do us some harm.
Have you ever felt, any of you, that you wanted to walk off stage during a performance?
Oh, yes, I have.
Have you ever walked off stage during a performance?
Once when my eyelash came off. But no, I don't think I would do that, because then I would not be fulfilling my part as an entertainer. But I can't say I would never do that. Maybe something will come up that I might, but I'm quite sure that if there was someone in the audience who was very ridiculous, someone in my management would take care of them and have them removed, whereas I would not have to disappoint another paying customer because of some drunk,
That's right, because for every obnoxious person out there, we've got a whole audience of people who have come there to enjoy us.
Right.
And we have to think about them, not that one obnoxious person.
Right. And one thing that I'm very proud of, and that is a lot of older people, and I'll go as far as to say grandparents, have come to our shows, and possibly they bring their younger children or grandchildren, and they don't really want to see us, but they're coming there to maybe give their child a treat, a birthday present or something. And anyway, at first they're sitting there and they're not mad at us or anything, but they just don't really care, and they say they don't really belong there. But towards the end of the show, you'll see the grandparents having more fun than the children. I mean, they just start, they're going on like this, and the children are sitting there because, of course, when they go out with their parents, they are very refined, But the adults, they show off, and this makes us very happy, because we have made a believer of them.
That's very interesting to hear that somebody really gets out there and wants to please the audience, because you hear of so many groups today that get on stage and they say, hey, we're into our thing, and if they dig it, fine. If not, tough.
Right. Well, you see, I think that we have a lot of different breeds of singers, and some of them are singers, some of them are entertainers, some are performers. And there is a difference in a singer and a performer, entertainer.
Before we go any further, Mary, how about picking a song that we can play? Any Supremes record that you would like us to play?
Nathan Jones.
We're talking with the Supremes, Mary, Cindy, and Jean, and they're appearing in Chicago. And I'd like to ask Mary, if you don't mind, to tell me and tell the folks who are listening. There are a lot of people who probably don't know, and I would like to know personally. You were around in 63 and 64, back in the old Motown, if I'm not mistaken. Tell us a little bit about what really happened over on Woodward Street, I believe it is, and what Berry Gordy is like.
Oh, wow. You socked it to me, didn't you, Dick? Well, I tell you, back in those days, Motown was an awful lot of fun. And when they used the term family, it wasn't used loosely because we really were a family. We're a very close-knit family. And everything was handled right in this one house. We recorded there, and we did everything there. They wrote songs and the whole bit. Well, now it's more of a business, whereas before it was fun and business. And to answer the question about Mr. Gordy, he's just a very, very talented man. And he knows what he wants, and he works for what he wants. And he knows the right people to fill the right jobs, too, you know. And, God, to go any further would take me all day.
Let me get specific with you. We'll forget the fact that now Berry Gordy is the head of a vast empire. But in those early days in that one house where it was a recording studio and office, was he a strict man in the studio and rehearsals?
No. He was fun, lots of fun. And when I say was, that he still is fun, but of course his business is first now. But he was, I think we got a lot of good material because everyone was involved in it fun-wise. Say, for instance, if the Temptations were recording, Mr. Gordy might say, "Come on in, Mary," or "Come on in, Smokey," or someone, and give us some hand claps on the tune, you know, things like that. And it was a very warm atmosphere. It really was. I kind of wish that Gene had been there during those days, because it really was, you know, out of sight. They used to fix lunches for us. That shows you how small they were. Had a lady come in and cook lunch. It was really nice. Really nice.
This is something else. The story goes around that he used to record 24 hours around the clock. Is that true, or is...
A lot of the recording was done late at night, yes.
And there was always somebody in there doing something?
Oh, yes, always. A lot of the young producers were there writing. A lot of producers didn't have places to stay, and they would come there to stay, and so that's why I would be working, like, all around the clock, you know.
It's very interesting to note that from this, well, we might call almost ghetto area, and I don't mean that in the wrong term, of Detroit, which is, some people have termed it, we've got the biggest pop sound going today. And it started off, let's face it, as an all-black sound. And yet, you kids seem to have trouble getting played on black stations. Are you considered a pop act rather than an R&B act?
Well, I think maybe we had been, but I don't think we have that problem any longer.
But we do have it here, I understand. Here in Chicago, it's a sort of a problem. I don't know why. I don't think people can really put us in a category. You know, not really. Because our records vary, you know, and in our act, we're R&B, we're pop, we're all of those things. So it's really sort of up to the disc jockeys, I would say. I think maybe they're classifying us.
Well, that's the question I was getting to next. Whose fault is it? And it's a shame because we almost have prejudice in reverse, as it were, you know. And I hate to see you gals missing out on so many places that your talents could be exposed.
I don't really know the reason, so I wouldn't be qualified to answer, you know. As long as the people are hearing us on some stations, well, I hope that, you know, they will maybe request to hear us on all of the others. I really couldn't answer it, you know.
Well, it really hasn't hindered our record sales, but of course, we like to have airplay everywhere possible.
Really?
Cindy, you're the married one in the group.
Yes, I'm...
And how does that affect, does it affect the act at all, or does it cause any problems?
Not so far. No, I don't think it will ever cause any problems because I try to keep my personal life aside as much as possible. You know, of course, it's kind of difficult for me, you know. I have to cope with the pressures. I try not to let them apply to my career because I don't want it to influence the group's activities. So it's pretty difficult to keep a good balance going.
Gene, how about you picking a Supremes record? Now, you're sort of new to the group. How about picking one from a few years back or something that you always enjoyed. Maybe let's play it for him.
One of my favorites are My World is Empty Without You, Babe.
We're talking with the Supremes. I'd like to get off the music talk for just a moment, girls, and get into something serious. And I'd like to get into, first of all, your feelings on the drug situation.
I would like to say that that's one thing that I'm really interested in as far as our young people are concerned, because I think that, they're talking about legalizing even marijuana, and I think that's a terrible thing to do, because that means that everybody's going to be high. That's exactly what it means if they legalize it. The teenagers, the kids, teeny boppers, all of them are going to be walking around smoking. And so I think that would be the most horrible thing to do, to legalize. And I really am down on drugs, because I think it's a way out of reality. And I think it sets another example. I don't think it sets an example for the future at all. I think that the future looks dim if things are going that way, because I think that people are able. I don't think they're able to cope. And reading and talking with people in this scene, I don't think they're able to cope as well as they're under normal circumstances. And I'm really, the young people have got to get it together, because they're the ones that's going to be leading us when we're older, and they've got to have their heads together, and the drug scene is just not the way.
I wish more people felt that way. I feel exactly the same way. And I think that some of the advertising agencies in the big cities and television stations and radio stations should really, really hop on this and stay on it until it lightens up a little bit. Of course, that may not help. But, a lot of advertising has other thoughts and ideas penetrate the minds of people. So I think it's worth a try. I remember recently I saw a television commercial. Well, I guess you could call it a commercial. It was about drug addiction. There was a little boy walking up to a carnival stand, and they had a guy behind there, like a barker, and they had him looking like a devil, the guy, with the ears and all, or the horns or whatever you call them. And he said, "Come on, little boy, play this game like that." And I had a big wheel up there, and on the wheel it had bad trip, freak out, death, and a lot of other things like that on there. So the little boy put a coin up there and spin the wheel like that. He took a chance, and it landed on death. And the little boy walked away frowning, and scared looking. And the devil said to him, "Too bad, sonny." Like that. It's kind of morbid, when you think about that. But that little commercial, if they showed that a lot, I think it would penetrate and probably scare a lot of people. And I liked it. I really did.
If it stuck in your mind, it
really
must
did.
have made
I remembered it, and I only saw it that one time.
And you know what else is good, Dick, is that they're showing how the drug scene is going and the war situation. I mean, the young people are going over there, and they're being just humiliated by what they're going into, that they have nothing else to turn to. And this is the attitude. This is what they portray, when they come back on television and talk about it. But it's good for the young people here to hear them talk about it, and it's disgusting too, because you really where they're going, and you know where you're going if you take that route. You know how miserable it is, and they get on television and tell you how very miserable it is to be there, and I think that's really good. Those type of things in the news media is really good.
And we play a lot of concerts where we meet a lot of young people, and colleges, one-nighters, and state fairs. Well, we see a lot of young people, because that's where we get our young crowds, more so than the nightclubs. And we have seen a lot of things. We have actually seen people that are really spaced out, young people. They don't even know what's going on around them, and that's very depressing, too, to see that. Young people that can't even control their emotions and have no control over anything they're saying or doing. that's frightening to see something like that.
Mary, you haven't said too much about this.
I know. They've been talking on it, and I share the same views as far as, like, young people. I really think that there should be a way where they shouldn't have it, you know. It should be something. I'm not, shall I say, completely against it, and I'm not completely for it. I think that it should not be where young people should have these drugs. Definitely, because I know a case in Detroit where a very, very young boy was addicted, and he was a friend of mine, you know. And it really tore at the family, it tore at everything, and it messed his life up completely, you know. But like Cindy and Jean both said, if there were a way where we could advertise it on television or radio, where it would scare away the young people, because the young people should not have anything of this kind that they cannot handle, because their minds are not yet developed to handle it, you know.
Nobody else.
And it should not be, you know. Well, but I mean, basically, we're talking about
a mind munkler. What do they call it? A mind munkler.
Yeah, but basically, you know, it's like my concern is with children, first of all, because they definitely cannot cope with these things. Well, and if we cut that out, well, then the future would be, it would not be with that either. It would not be there. You know?
Young people do what they see older folks do.
Well, that's true. That's true. Just like we've smoking cigarettes and we drink booze. It's all of these things, you know.
It becomes a tradition.
Right.
Mary, you talked about your main concern is children. And let me jump to something else, and the other gals can jump in. How do you feel on the abortion question?
I think that it's good under the proper care. If it's legalized within, like they have it now, where you go to a certain board and they, you know, say, well, if you have a valid reason, well, then you should. I don't think it should be a thing where little young girls go to whoever they can find to give abortions. I don't think that that's right. But anything that, like if it's legalized and handled properly and can be controlled, I think it's good, yes. Because a lot of young girls just should not, they just can't cope with having children. However, it still poses the problem of maybe more girls will go out and get pregnant. Well, that's a problem that it starts at home, and I guess you have to kind of handle it there.
Cindy, what do you feel as a married woman, and what are your feelings on this?
Well, I approve of abortions only if it's like a matter of life or death for the mother. You know, I think only then should there be an abortion. I think whether they're young or old or what age, that if they are bearing a child, they should go on and have it. I don't believe in abortions unless it endangers, unless the having the baby is going to endanger the life of the mother. Then an abortion under the care of a doctor. You know, I just can't sanction abortions.
And you just read headlong into the Catholic Church, too. Jean, what are your feelings on it?
Well, I think there are many reasons why a person could and should get an abortion. A divorce. An abortion. And if those reasons are valid, and if they can go before the board and prove that those reasons are valid, I think that they should have the abortion.
Thank you for joining us, and welcome again to Dick Biondi and Friend. And this Sunday, as last, our guests are the Supremes. And girls, I'd like to get right into the questioning this evening, if you don't mind, and start off with a question that is not related to music, but certainly related to everybody in the country, and that is the question of prejudice and bigotry. Do you three Supremes, as very talented, very successful, and internationally known, do you find that you yourselves are subject of prejudice by anyone? And do you feel that the black people themselves are still finding prejudice a prevalent way of life in the United States?
Sure, I'm kidding. I was, it's funny, I was walking through the hotel the other day with my dog, and I was very content just walking to my room, you know. In fact, Jean and I had just come from her mother's house, and there was a gentleman there, and he approached me, and he said, my room number is so-and-so, so-and-so. And it really hurt me because here I am, I'm a young girl, and I had, my thoughts are, when he and first of all, he just shocked me by saying it, and I said to myself, wow, is this what men think of black girls who are all by themselves, or just black girls, period, And when I got to my room, I started thinking on the whole situation. Of course, we've talked about it quite a bit, but that just brought up all these old things that had been in my mind, wow, it's really, it's changing, but it's still bad. It's still bad as long as people hold certain thoughts in their minds that they're better or that other people are not as good as they are, and it still prevails everywhere in different degrees and everything. But it's something that I think the only way we can solve it is that individually each of us cleanse our minds towards people and towards ourselves, and just start thinking as human beings, not as animals. It'll be better, but it's going to take a long time.
Do you think that we have time, or do you think that the militants are going to force the issue, or do you think we are going to have any more Detroits or Watts or?
And I really don't know. I really don't know.
I'll tell you,
It's hard.
I don't think I have time to wait on people to get ready. I'm ready for people. I can sit down and talk with you forever without talking about race, but most people can't. And most white people cannot sit down in a conversation with me without bringing up race. And I'm ready. I can do it for day in and day out because I feel like I'm able. I don't know. I don't know if it's intelligence or what. I don't know what it is, but they just feel like they should tell me that you're all right. You're one black girl that's all right with me. And why? What for? Let me be a human being, and you're a human being. You might not be all right with me, But if we can sit and talk, we can sit and talk. We got something in common, and we're going to have likes and dislikes just like everybody else. But it shouldn't go to race. If it does, then something is wrong. Something is wrong. And it's very hard to. I don't know how many people I've talked with without them confronting me with the fact that I was black. And this is the whole idea, is to get you to know that you're still black and I'm white, that type of thing. And when they do that, it turns me right off, actually.
I don't even think like that.
I don't think like that.
That's a beautiful thought. You're the first person that's ever brought it up that way, and I'm very happy you did, because now that you mention it, and I've been sitting and watching, it's very, very true. You really can't have a white and black person sit down together and somehow not get the question out.
Right.
Now, what advice do you give to the we hope millions of people that are listening tonight to get away from this? Gene, you started it. What would you tell them? How would you say, hey?
I think they should just love a little more and just be free. Don't feel like you have to be tied down to the old hang-ups and what have you. We all have our prejudices. I have some, you have some. And it might be that I don't like how you wear your hair, or you might not like how I wear mine. Whatever. But I can still appreciate you as a human being, and you can appreciate me as a person. If we can communicate at all, we can communicate on those levels. Appreciation. If we can't, we can't. And I've run into many people that I just can't get into, and I know that we have too many differences, so I don't bother with them. But if we can communicate at all, we should just be a little more freer and relax, Forget about a lot of those old hang-ups that were, and there will always be old hang-ups, because there are differences between races. Mary and I have differences. So we'll always have...
So we're the same race now.
Right, but I mean, what I'm saying is that there are differences. There are prejudices in races. So, human differences, right. But if we have a little love and just feel like we are free to say whatever we want to say, and yet do what we want to do without having hang-ups about them. You can tell when a person has a hang-up, and I think that would be the way out of it, If we can talk about race without me feeling that you got a hang-up about it, that's cool, too. But you can tell when a person has a thing on it, and they're trying to make you see differences and stuff like that between the two. That's all.
How about you, Cindy? Any comment on it?
I agree that people really should start thinking about each other and as people, not as a certain color or a certain race, and that we should try to see people, in a different light, not as a black man. Well, I said that, as a black man or a Chinese or whatever. I believe that would make if we got together, well, it's very hard for me to talk about it because I have so many things going on in our personal life because of an interracial marriage. I run against a lot more prejudice, than, say, Mary or Jean, for instance, because I have to be with my husband a lot. But it's very hard for me to talk about it.
Oh, well, let's throw it over to Mary. Let's throw it over. You want to make any other comment, or do you want me to change the...
I have no hang-ups about black and white at all. I am one of the few people that I know who has hardly any. I was brought up in an atmosphere where I loved everyone. And like I was saying, sometimes I wish I had had a little harder upbringing so that possibly I could have a little more animosity like everyone else. But I really, really have very few. My mother brought us up just loving everyone. And that's not a lie. That's the honest to God truth. And I have always had... This sounds funny. I have always had white friends.
Well, I haven't.
I really have.
I haven't always had white friends. I was brought up in an all-black neighborhood, just as we all were, basically,
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, I went to an interracial school, and I never really thought about white people being white, Just my friends were my friends, and I had white friends and black friends. But when I got out of high school, I ran into a whole lot of prejudices when I started taking jobs,
Out into the world.
Right. It was hard getting certain jobs because I was black, and, and I became kind of a bitter, and I formed prejudices of my own against white people. And I think that's only natural, but of course, in the black people's struggle today, in order for us to get anywhere, we're going to have to forget a lot of that, too. But I really think that if we don't start thinking now that there is going to be a lot of bloodshed, I feel that it's going to be a lot more violence and riots and things because people are not thinking along the lines of love a person for what they really are. And I think that the minority races are ready to fight now for what they want. And I'm sorry to hear it because I'm not for the violent side of it. But I think that that's what it's going to come down to.
When we all pray you're wrong, we all hope you are.
I do, too.
Let me ask you your opinion on our involvement in Vietnam. Anybody got any quick answers to that or long answers?
Well, I know very little about politics, let's put it that way. But I have seen a little of the war. We traveled in Okinawa, we traveled in the Far East a couple of years back. And I had the privilege of visiting the Army hospitals, the Navy hospitals, and talking to the young men who had been wounded in Vietnam. Also, my brother had gone to Vietnam twice and to the Dominican Republic. Anyway, I saw the young men who had half of bodies, heads smashed in on one side, and just very, very sordid things we saw. And these guys, you just think they have to go back into the world and live for what, And I guess I feel more or less like a mother or very maternal about the whole situation. I don't know if what they're doing is right or what they're doing is wrong, but I know that it's messing up half of our young men, or all of our young men. And after a while, we'll have nothing but women left.
Mary, if I may stay on this one point, what do you say, or what did you say when you walked up to a guy whose head was bashed in, only half a body?
Well, first of all, you almost have to be, you can't be real. You really can't be real, because if you were real, you would automatically burst into tears. It's such it's a very, very hurting feeling. It's one of the most hurting feelings I've ever had as a human being, other than possibly my father dying. But you really can't say anything but how are you doing, or when are you going home, something like that, or how long have you been in? You can't talk. You really can't talk, because first of all, they're still hurt from, it'll probably take them years to get over it, So how do you approach a guy who has no legs or no arms and he's only 19 years old? I mean, what do you say to him?
Did you feel they had hope, or were...
Well, I think that some guys did, but it's really an individual thing. Some guys took it very well. Some guys didn't. You know, some guys, you look at them and, well, like we all went to the hospital in San Francisco, and there was a young fellow who had no hands, and he just sort of withdrew when we came around. You know, he wasn't ready for people to see him yet. He hadn't accepted his no hands, you know. So if he hadn't accepted it, you know, it's something that I think that many people should see it, and then they would understand. Possibly a lot of these old men who are sitting behind the desk planning the wars, and probably have personality conflicts with Indochina or somebody, you know, someone over there. And he's holding out because he wants to hold out from this Chinese guy, you know, and other guys are being killed. So I think that many people, American people, should see it.
Might be a good idea for some of those people to go out and see what they're making happen.
That's right. I mean, we get millions of guys coming back on these boats and planes. You know, they just nothing.
And not only do they have physical illness, I mean, the mental thing isn't. They find it hard to be accepted by Americans once they come back.
Maybe.
You know,
sure,
they find it hard to get a job. That's why a lot of them stay over. And
right.
You know what? I had a very good friend that got shot in the war, and he wanted to go back. And he told me, "No, I'm going back. I'm going back." His mind was orientated to fight. And he wanted to go back to get even. This is, you know, and he went back and he was just, you know, he got killed. Because he wasn't really ready to go back, but he'd gotten shot up, you know. And then he went back, and we begged him not to. He didn't have to go back.
Well, you know, that also goes back to the drug problem, too. That's how a lot of them get on drugs when they're wounded. They're given these drugs in order to keep them comfortable. And that's how they get addicted. And in fact, that's the main reason they get addicted, not because they take it on their own. That's because they are administered it in the hospital to keep their pain down. The pain that they get, like helping us or protecting us.
So when they come back here, they are Americans' problem.
And then there are no institutions really for them to be cured.
Yeah. They're trying. They have some institutions that are trying to cure them, but
when I say no, really, I mean it's none compared to the ratio shows many guys that need it.
That's right. The ratio shows that none of them are being cured.
So
none of them.
You know, and it's a problem too. Like, I'm going to go back to the race thing again for the black soldier in Vietnam. You know, it's a little different for him over there because I met a young black guy. He was around 21, who had just gotten out and come back from Vietnam. He wasn't injured. He hadn't been injured, but he was a drug addict, and he said he was, you know, and he was from Philadelphia. We met him in the airport. He was going home. He was very happy to be out, but he was worried about what he's going to face back in the streets of Philadelphia. He said he was happy to be home and see his family, but he wasn't sure he really wanted to be back after all he had read in the papers and what was going on. And he told us of an experience that he had in Vietnam that shocked me. He said that he could have been shot. He says that the fellows that were with him that were white were all killed, you know, but because he was black, that the Viet Cong did not shoot him because they felt that he had a problem enough being black. Now, I don't know whether this is the truth or not, but this is what this young black, and I said, wow, if that's how it is over there, then something's really got to be done. If more people in America could hear that kind of story, they would say, wow, how do people think we are? They must think we're monsters.
Let me ask you a very loaded question. Knowing your feelings on certain issues, and I don't know whether you have been, I really don't know, so I'm asking in the blind. If you were invited to sing at the White House, would you accept in the current administration?
I don't think we'll be invited.
You know, we had lunch with Senator McGovern, and the vice president was sitting across the table. Oh, the next day we were in the Senate, the House of the Senate, right? I mean the restaurant at the Senate.
Yes.
And everybody got up. Andy Williams, it was just a lot of us at the table. You know, we were down there to do a show for the Ford's Festival Theater.
Right.
And just a lot of Andy Williams, Pearl Bailey, Jimmy Stewart, all of us sitting at the table eating. And they went over to shake hands, and I didn't get up. I didn't want to shake hands. And my manager said, Gene, get over there. And you know what I did? I waited till he sat back down and started eating. And as I'm going now, he had to get back up and shake my hand. Stand up and shake my hand. It was so funny. But,
to answer your question, we haven't talked about this collectively, but personally, I wouldn't.
Well, that tells you what I wanted.
Well,
I didn't want to shake his hand.
First of all, because we were backing Vice President Humphrey,
yes,
in the elections, and I'm quite sure that they would be very kind in not asking us to come, since they know that we
supported it. I'm sure we wouldn't be asked.
Right.
You answered the question very nicely. You know, Mary, you brought up something earlier that I'd like to hit on. We've talked to all these male idols, the Bobby Shermans and so forth, and the groups. But is there such a thing with the Supremes as groupies, male groupies?
What do you mean?
I'm talking about the young guys that run and follow you around and try to...
Oh, yes.
We do.
We have some that follow us all over the country, as a matter of fact.
And they're mostly guys, too.
They're mostly guys.
Is there anything, a couple of incidents that are funny or unusual that maybe about these guys, they do anything weird to get to you or anything?
Well, there is an unusual experience.
Pretend that they're
we just
brothers.
had a guy follow us all the way to Venezuela from New York City.
That's right.
And that's kind of unusual. And we also had a guy come from Germany. We had just left a European tour, and he was president of our fan club. And he followed us all over Europe. I don't know where he got the money from, and he took notes, because they put out a newspaper on us over there in Germany, in Munich. And he told us that he'd come over to see us after we got back home. And I think it was like a month after we got back in the States, Mary called up and said, guess who's at my house? And it was the president of our fan club from Munich.
Right. Our incidents are not very spectacular. Just like, they're basically all like what Cindy's speaking of. But usually, I'll get a lot of guys to come by my house, and they found out my address from the newspaper. Someone put it in the newspaper. But they'll just come by, and say, I'm so-and-so from so-and-so, and we just wanted to come in and see you. And all of our fans really feel that they know us. I mean, that they are our personal friends, which is, very, very good. But when you have as many fans as we have, you have so many friends, boy, you don't have time for yourself, really. They really come by, and they'll sit and talk and invite you out to dinner and just all sorts of things. And they send us gifts, and we got money the other day. We got $1 bill. The guy said, have a drink on me.
Yeah, that's right. And the same guy that followed us to Venezuela, like I said, he was from New York City. The last time we were appearing in New York, we came out one night from the job to go back to the hotel. And we were in a limousine, and we looked in back of us, and there was another limousine in back of us. Yeah. And the young man was sitting in the back there, and with a friend. And they followed us all the way to the hotel in the limousine. And then after we got out, at the hotel, they just drove on off. That's kind of weird, but we have fans that do all kinds of things like that.
Things, right. All kinds of things.
You can't understand these things. It's just,
Recently on this program, I asked Muddy Waters a question. I'm going to ask you three, and we'll see what the reaction is from you. Can any of you give us the real definition of the overworked word soul?
Did you hear me?
I think
Stevie Wonder said it was the bottom of his shoes.
Oh, I don't know. I think everybody has soul of some kind. Soul is referred to in singing or in the entertainment field. I think comes from within. It's a feeling. It's a feeling that you put into whatever you're doing at the time, whether it's singing, even talking. You can be a soulful talker. You can be soulful in whatever you're doing. It's a feeling that comes from within. That's the way I feel about it.
I feel the same way. It's a feeling, and I would say a feeling in the way that feeling is expressed. Yeah, just the way you express your feeling.
Do all of you have optimistic outlooks for the future? And I'm not talking about your own personal lives, but for the world. Do you think we're going to get out of all of our hassles, or we're going to blow ourselves up in one big bang?
Well, we always have got out of them. I'd rather think along those lines. I I think no matter how bad things are in this country, I mean, the racial situation, us being in the middle of this war for years and years, no matter what, I still think we're the greatest nation in the world and that we can bring ourselves out of it because we have so many intelligent people running this country. They seem a little, well, I wish I could use a certain word, messed up right now in the head. But, you know, I think our only hope really is the youth of our country, you know, and the way we're thinking, the way we're going now, I think they're going to be our salvation, you know, and I think that we're going to come through it.
Mary?
Ditto.
Jean?
Jean talked already.
Okay. Girls, gee, this is most pleasant, and to be very honest, this is the first time I've had the opportunity to talk to the Supremes.